The restaurant manager called my proposal a spectacle, told me to go to a fast food restaurant next time, and called the police on me for proposing. He didn't know my fiancé's father was the regional food safety inspector. I had been planning to propose to my girlfriend Harper for 3 months. We had been together for 4 years, and I knew she was the one before we even hit year 2. I bought the ring in September. Simple gold band, small diamond, nothing flashy. Harper doesn't like flashy. I paid for it in full. It cost me almost 4 months of saving from my job as an electrician. I wanted to propose at a restaurant because our first date was at a restaurant, a small Italian place near her apartment that closed down 2 years ago. So I picked a different Italian restaurant across town called Bellini's. It had good reviews, white tablecloths, candles on every table, the kind of place where people get dressed up and talk quietly. I made a reservation for 7:30 on a Saturday. 3 days before, I called and spoke to the hostess. I told her I was planning to propose during dinner and asked if that would be okay. She said absolutely. She said they had proposals there all the time. She said she would make a note on the reservation. She told me congratulations. Saturday came. Harper and I got dressed up and drove over together. We were seated at a corner table near the window. The waiter brought us menus and water. We ordered appetizers and talked about her week. Everything was calm. After the main course arrived, I decided it was time. I didn't want to make some big production. I just wanted to ask her. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the ring box and got up from my chair and knelt down next to the table. Harper's eyes went wide. Her hand went to her mouth. I opened the box and asked her to marry me. She said yes before I even finished the sentence. She was crying and smiling, and she pulled me up and kissed me. A few tables nearby started clapping. An older couple across the room raised their glasses. It was the best moment of my life. It lasted about 45 seconds. A man came walking fast from the back of the restaurant. Dark suit, name tag that said manager. His name was Gus. He walked straight to our table and stood over us. He didn't smile. He didn't say congratulations. He said I needed to stop this right now. I was still on one knee. I asked what the problem was. He said proposals were not allowed in his restaurant. He said they were disruptive and inappropriate and that we were disturbing the other guests. I told him I called ahead, and the hostess said it was fine. He said the hostess didn't have the authority to approve something like that. He said she was a part-time employee and she should have checked with him first. He called my proposal a spectacle. He told me to put the ring away and sit down, or he would ask us to leave. Harper's face had completely changed. She was still holding my hand, but she wasn't smiling anymore. She looked embarrassed. The older couple across the room was watching. The whole place was watching. I stood up and told Gus I was sorry if it caused a disruption, but it lasted less than a minute and everyone seemed happy about it. He said he didn't care if people were happy about it. He said this was a dining establishment and not a performance venue. He said if I wanted to do something like that, I should have gone to a park or a fast food restaurant. He said that to me while I was standing next to the woman I just asked to marry. Harper told him there was no reason to be rude. He said he was maintaining the standards of his establishment. Then he told us our meal was being comped and we needed to leave. He was kicking us out. I told him we didn't want a free meal. I told him I would pay for everything we ordered. He said it wasn't about the money. He said once a restaurant allows one proposal, then everyone thinks they can do it. And before long, people are bringing in balloons and musicians, and it turns into a circus. I asked him to let us finish quietly. He said no. I told him we were not leaving until we finished eating. He picked up his phone and called the police. He called the police on a man who proposed to his girlfriend at a dinner table. 2 officers showed up 15 minutes later. Gus met them at the door and pointed at us. The officers came over and asked what happened. I told them I had proposed and the manager asked us to leave. They looked at each other. One asked Gus if there had been any violence or threats. Gus said no, but we were trespassing because he had asked us to leave and we refused. The officer told us it would be easier for everyone if we just left. I didn't want Harper's night to get any worse, so I agreed. We stood up. I left 3 20s on the table for the waiter because none of this was his fault. We walked out. Harper didn't say anything in the car for a while. She was looking out the window. Then she looked down at the ring on her finger and said she loved it and she loved me and one bad manager wasn't going to ruin this. I held her hand the rest of the drive home, but I could see what the night had done to her. The smile she had when she said yes was gone. Whatever Gus took from her in those few minutes, he took it on purpose. The next morning, I told Harper's father, Ronaldo, what happened. Telling him was harder than I expected. Not because he didn't believe me, because he believed every word. He sat at the dining table and didn't interrupt once. He had a cup of coffee in front of him, and he didn't touch it the whole time I was talking. He looked at me and listened like he was recording every word in his head. When I finished, he just asked me one question. He asked me the name of the restaurant. That's when I remembered what Harper had mentioned months ago. Ronaldo wasn't just her dad. He was the regional food safety inspector. I told him about Ebony, the hostess, how she had said proposals happened there all the time. I told him about being called a spectacle, about being told to put the ring away, about being kicked out, and then I got to the part where Gus told me I should have gone to a fast food restaurant. That's when Ronaldo moved for the first time. He picked up his coffee mug, then set it back down real slow, like he was being careful not to break it. He said that to you? In front of my daughter? I nodded. I didn't know what else to say. Ronaldo leaned back. His jaw got tight. He was quiet for a few seconds. Then he said, I've been doing this job 22 years. Every restaurant in this region goes through me. Every single one. It wasn't loud or angry, just a fact. Like he was telling me the sky was blue, but there was something underneath it that made the hair on my arms stand up. I sat there feeling 2 things at the same time. Part of me was glad someone else was mad about what happened. Another part of me got nervous. I didn't want to be the guy who caused a whole big thing the day after getting engaged. I said, Ronaldo, I don't want to cause trouble. I don't want to make things worse. I just wanted you to know what happened. He looked at me a long time, not in a mean way, more like he was figuring out what kind of man I was. Then he said, you asked my daughter to marry you. You did everything right. You called ahead. You were polite. And this man called the police on you. That's not something I forget. He said, I'm not going to do anything outside the rules. I want you to hear that. But I am going to do my job. And my job is making sure every restaurant in this region is following the law. Harper walked in then, still in her pajamas, ring on her finger. She figured out what was happening fast. She said, Dad, you don't have to do that. Ronaldo's voice got softer but no less serious. He said, I'm not doing it because I have to. I'm doing it because a man who treats customers like that probably cuts other corners too. And if he doesn't, then he's got nothing nothing to worry about. Ronaldo opened his laptop and pulled up some database from the health department. He typed in the restaurant name. He said, last inspection was 14 months ago. They were due 6 months ago. Somehow it slipped through. He called his office right there at the dining table and scheduled a routine inspection for the following Tuesday. Then he looked at me and gave me a look that said it was done. Sunday afternoon, my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. It was Ebony. She had gotten my number from the reservation file. She said, I told Gus I approved the proposal and he screamed at me in the back office. He put me on probation. I told her I was sorry. She said, that's not why I'm calling. He told the whole staff that if anyone talks about what happened, they're fired. He's saying you were aggressive and threatening. That's why he called the police. I stood there holding the phone, aggressive. I got down on one knee and asked a woman to marry me. I asked Ebony if the staff believed him. She said some of them were there and saw the whole thing, but they were scared of Gus. She said he ran that place like his personal kingdom. I called Ronaldo and told him everything. He was quiet a beat. He said, that's intimidation of employees. That's actually something I look at during inspections. Staff should be able to speak freely. If they can't, that tells me more than any checklist. That evening, Harper came home with her face tight. She said she had run into a friend who ate at Bellini's the night before. The friend told her Gus was sitting with a table of regulars, laughing, telling them he handled a situation over the weekend. Harper said, he's proud of it. He's actually proud of what he did to us. The anger came back like a wave, the kind that sits in your chest and makes your hands feel heavy. Monday, I almost talked myself out of the whole thing. I went to work and I couldn't focus. I kept running wires and thinking about the inspection. I sat on the edge of the bed thinking maybe I was being petty. Maybe this was too much. The guy was rude. Yeah, he was wrong. But getting the health department involved, maybe that was crossing a line. Then Harper walked in. She was in her pajamas and the ring was on her finger, catching the light from the lamp. She sat down next to me and she didn't ask if I was okay. She said, I keep thinking about the older couple who raised their glasses. Everyone in that room was happy for us. He was the only one who wasn't. She wasn't trying to convince me. She was just saying what was true, and hearing it like that made everything click. This wasn't about revenge. This was about a man who had a tiny bit of power and used it to make people feel small. He did it to me. He did it to Harper. He did it to Ebony. He probably did it to every person who worked for him. Near midnight, my phone buzzed. Ebony again. She said, Gus had the back of house deep cleaned today. Someone told him there might be an inspection coming. My whole body went cold. Somebody had tipped him off. If he cleaned everything up before Tuesday, Ronaldo might walk in and find nothing. And then it would look like the whole thing was made up. I called Ronaldo right then. I was talking fast and I could hear the worry in my own voice. Ronaldo laughed. A short one, like I had said something funny without knowing it. He said, good, let him clean. I didn't understand. He said, a deep clean the night before tells me they don't clean any other night. One night of scrubbing doesn't fix 6 months of neglect. Grease builds in layers. Expired food leaves traces. Temperature logs can't be faked overnight. The equipment tells a story, and one night of panic doesn't rewrite 6 months of it. He told me to get some sleep. Tuesday morning, Ronaldo left at 8 with his clipboard. Around 11, he texted me 3 words. Found some things. He got back around 6:30 carrying a folder under his arm. He set it on the dining table and pulled out a chair. He looked at both of us and said, I want you to understand that none of this is because of the proposal. Everything I documented is a real violation that puts real people at risk. Then he opened it. He went through it piece by piece, like a teacher going through a lesson. Photo of the walk-in cooler. Expired food items. Some weeks past date. One container had a label on it from over 3 weeks ago. Then the temperature logs. They had gaps. Some days weren't filled in at all. Some numbers looked like they were written in all at once, like somebody sat down and filled in a whole week at the end of the week. Then the dishwasher. It wasn't reaching the heat the water needs to hit during the final rinse to kill bacteria. Every plate and fork and glass going out to customers might not be fully clean. Then the hand washing station. No soap, no paper towels. Ronaldo looked at Harper when he said that part. He said, that alone is a critical violation. Their hands touch every plate that goes out. He let that sit a second. Then the ventilation hood. Grease buildup, thick and layered. Fire risk. Then a photo of cleaning chemicals stored on a shelf directly above a food prep surface. He said if one of those bottles leaked or got knocked over, it goes right into whatever's being prepared below it. This wasn't one item past date. This was a pattern. Then he told us how it went. He said Gus met him at the front, polite, offered him coffee. Ronaldo turned it down. The minute he started actually looking at things, Gus was right behind him every step. When Ronaldo found the expired food, Gus said, that cooler runs cold. The dates are conservative. When Ronaldo found the chemicals above the prep surface, Gus said, those were just moved there this morning. They're usually stored properly. Ronaldo said he had an excuse for everything. Every single thing. That's always the tell. People who run clean operations don't need excuses because there's nothing to excuse. Then he told us about the staff interviews. He said Gus's face changed when he was told he couldn't sit in. Gus tried to push it. Said as the manager, he had a right to know what his staff was saying. Ronaldo told him that was not how it worked. The first employee was Eli, the waiter who served us that night, the one I had left 320s for. Eli was nervous, but once he was told the conversation was confidential, he started talking. He said the place had been in bad shape for months. Staff had complained. Gus told them to focus on the front of house. The deep clean Monday was the first real one in a long time. Ronaldo said Eli was honest and his statement matched everything the inspection turned up. Then Ronaldo closed the folder. Bellini's received a conditional fail, 30 days to correct every violation or face closure. He also filed a separate note about staff intimidation. Harper asked what happens to Gus. Ronaldo said, that's up to the owner. But when an owner gets a report like this, they usually want to know why their manager spent his time calling the police on customers instead of keeping the place safe. The next day, I was working a side job in the garage when my phone buzzed with a voicemail from a number I didn't know. I almost deleted it. Something told me to listen. It was Gus. I recognized him right away. That same controlled tone, except now there was something sharp underneath it. He said, I know exactly what you did. I know who her father is. I filed a formal complaint with the health department alleging that Ronaldo Creech conducted a retaliatory inspection based on a personal grudge. I have a lawyer. Your future father-in-law is going to lose his job. I stood in the garage with a wire stripper in one hand and my phone in the other and felt like the floor had tilted. I played it 3 times. Each time the words hit a little harder. Formal complaint, retaliatory inspection, personal personal grudge, lose his job. I put my tools down and walked inside. Harper was reading on her laptop in the living room. I didn't say anything at first. I just stood in the doorway holding my phone, and she looked up and knew right away something was wrong. She closed the laptop and said, "What happened?" I sat down next to her and played the voicemail on speaker. I watched her face while she listened. Her eyes got wide. All the color left her cheeks. When it finished, she just sat there staring at my phone like it was going to say something else. Then she said, "Can he actually do that? Can he get my dad in trouble?" I didn't have an answer. I called Ronaldo and played it for him. He went quiet a full minute. Then his voice came through, steady and calm. He said, "He can file whatever he wants. Every violation I documented is supported by photographs, temperature readings, and employee statements. My report will hold up against any review, but I appreciate the heads up." He explained that retaliatory inspection claims were a real thing and did get investigated. His office would assign a second inspector to review independently. If they confirmed his findings, the complaint dies. If they didn't, Ronaldo could face discipline. His voice didn't shake. He said, "I'm not worried. I did not cut corners. I did not exaggerate. If anything, I was lenient." He said he could have flagged harder, but didn't because he wanted the report to be so clean nobody could question it. He said every photo had a timestamp. Every temperature reading was logged. Every employee statement was signed. After we hung up, Harper was sitting with her knees pulled up. She said, "I don't want my dad to get in trouble because of our proposal. Maybe we should have just let this go." I felt sick. 22 years of work, his reputation, his job, all because I proposed to his daughter and a manager lost his mind. An hour later, Ronaldo called back. Second inspector scheduled for Friday, unannounced. He said, "If that place is what I say it is, this ends Friday." Wednesday evening, Ebony called whispering low. She said, "Gus is making everyone re-clean. He's replacing the expired food. He's fixing the hand washing station. He told the staff that if the second inspector comes, everything better be perfect. Anyone who talks gets fired on the spot." I asked if Eli knew. She said, "Eli already gave his statement to your father-in-law. Gus can't unring that bell. But he's trying to make the physical evidence disappear before Friday." That's when the real fear hit. If Gus cleaned well enough, if the second inspector walked in and saw a spotless operation, Ronaldo's report would look wrong, like he made it up, and Gus's complaint would suddenly have teeth. Friday, I woke before the sun. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to Harper breathe next to me. I couldn't go to the inspection. I couldn't go to Bellini's. I couldn't do anything except sit in my own house and wait for someone else to decide how this whole thing ended. Harper called in sick. We sat on the couch for hours. Every text made my chest tight. A text from a buddy about a job next week. An email from my bank. A notification from some app I forgot I even had. Each time my heart jumped and each time it was nothing. Harper and I sat there for 3 hours. Sometimes she would get up and walk into the other room and come back. Sometimes I would stand at the window and look at the street like I expected to see something out there that would give me an answer. Around 10, Ronaldo texted, "Second inspector just arrived. I'm not there. This has to be independent." At 1 in the afternoon, my phone rang. "Ronaldo." I put it on speaker. He said, "The second inspector completed the review." I said, "What happened?" My voice came out rough. He paused. Then he said, "Gus cleaned everything, replaced the food, fixed the hand washing station. The physical space looked better than when I inspected it." My heart sank. Harper grabbed my arm. Her fingers dug into my skin. Then Ronaldo said, "But that's not how inspections work." Harper's grip got tighter. He said, "I took dated photographs with metadata timestamps. The second inspector compared my documentation to the current state. Every photo I took has a date and time baked into the file. You can't change that. You can't fake it." He said, "A place that goes from 12 violations to 0 in 72 hours doesn't prove compliance. It proves concealment." The air came back into my lungs. Harper made a sound, something between a gasp and a laugh. Then Ronaldo said the second inspector also did staff interviews. Eli gave a full statement again. Same truth as before. 2 other staff members talked too. Scared, but more scared of lying with a badge across the table than they were of Gus. All 3 confirmed it. The place had been neglected for months. The deep clean was a panic response. The violations were real. Ebony provided a written statement. She described the threats, the screaming in the back office, the culture of fear. The second inspector's report didn't just confirm Ronaldo's findings. It went further. They added a new violation on top of everything else. Obstruction and attempted evidence tampering. Ronaldo said, "Gus's complaint against me has been dismissed. My report stands. The conditional fail has been upgraded to immediate temporary closure pending full remediation. The owner has been notified directly." Harper let out a breath, the kind that comes from somewhere deep. I asked about Gus. Ronaldo paused. He said, "The owner called my office an hour ago. He asked for both reports. He said he had no idea things had gotten that bad. He said, and I'm quoting him, 'I hired Gus to run a restaurant, not to call the police on customers while the place falls apart.'" Ronaldo let it sit. Then he said, "Gus was terminated this morning, before the second inspector even finished. I didn't say anything. I couldn't." Ronaldo's voice got more personal then. Not softer exactly, but like he was talking to me as a person and not as the inspector who filed the report. He said, "I didn't do this for the proposal. I did this because a man who spends his energy humiliating customers and threatening his staff is not a man who keeps people safe. That's my job, keeping people safe." He took a breath. Then he said, "But I'll admit, it felt a little better knowing he did it to my daughter and my future son-in-law." Harper laughed, wet and messy because she was crying at the same time, but it was real. The first real laugh I had heard from her since Saturday night. The ring caught the light on her hand. She smiled at me and said, "Still the best proposal I've ever gotten." The restaurant closed Friday afternoon. The doors stayed locked.